Afternoon, good morning, and good evening, dear viewers, wherever you're joining us today from on our one of our next episodes of the Development Dialogue series. Today, our guest is Mr. Aragu Pandyaraja MP. He's a software engineer and a policy analyst. His interests are in the field of digital tools, Internet of Things, public policy, and governance. And he has over 6 years of experience in information tech, and he's been previously with the HCL Technologies. He was also involved in geospatial analysis for a Royal Bank of Scotland project. And before that, he was with UNICEF as a life skills trainer. And he's one of those unique folks who combine digital interventions in public policy space. And today he's right now joining us in his current capacity as a innovation officer of the Chennai Innovation Hub, and we would like to talk to him specifically about the hub, as well as especially with regards to COVID and how, as students or professionals in international development, as well as in IT, can engage with the hub as well as do similar kind of work in our own organizations. Very welcome, Mr. Aragu. We look forward to speaking with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
First of all, tell us a little bit about yourselves besides my introduction, and maybe give us a background on how did you come about this, crossing across the aisle from IT to public sector.
You literally covered my journey, how I started and where I am now. But maybe I will add few more points. I was a software engineer. I was working for some 5 years in software industry. Then I always had a urge to do something along with society, in a large scale. So I came into the field of in public domain. I wanted to enter into government space where I can handle large projects. So I got a chance to be a research fellow with Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, where I got opportunity. It was a proper exam. I cleared it, and I got opportunity in policy making and implementing projects at ground level. So that was the first step where I get experience on how public policy, large projects and works, or how the government engine works, and all those things. I got knowledge from that, during that phase. When I was doing that fellowship, COVID pandemic came. So though it is a pandemic, it affected many people, and it is considered to be the worst thing. But it also gave me an opportunity to work on issue. It's like no one knows what to do when COVID came. It was like everyone is going with a head start. So it was like everyone is new to that field. So it gave me an opportunity to work along with everyone. So we were able to develop tools, technologies to combat COVID, and we implemented it in Chennai Corporation. And most of it was highly successful, and it became official tools. So we did it along with the society. It's like we were able to bring in people together who wants to help the society, universities, startups, companies, all of them came together, and we were able to create, use all the brains together, and we were able to solve society's crucial challenges. Then this idea of innovation, this hub came. So why can't we formalize this channel, and why can't we create a hub where this kind of system can exist, when anyone can come and work along with the government to develop an idea, to implement an idea, to solve a social issue. So that is how this hub came. And then from a research fellow, I got into this hub, and I'm working along with Chennai Smart Cities and Greater Chennai Corporation and Chennai Innovation Hub, basically working on social issues. But we solve those issues not in a traditional way, but in a modern way, by bringing in more people together.
That's great. So you said the Innovation Hub kind of grew organically as a process flow. Can you describe the journey on? Generally, our understanding is whether it's innovation or bringing something new within government. It's not just in India, globally as well. Bringing in innovation or hub like this is a challenging process, given the bureaucracies and red tapes, or even just the processes are longer. How and the agility in which, for instance, a software company operates may not be the same case in a government sector. So how difficult was it, or how easy was it to move from a problem was being addressed, and then you tried to formalize it into a hub? Can you describe the journey, and what were some of the challenges and how they were overcome into establishing what it is today?
Yeah, if you see it from a general sense, it looks challenging because until we understand the process will look challenged. But once we understand the process or the system perfectly, we know how to navigate inside the system and get our works done. It's not only for government, for any industries or any marketing companies or anywhere system. It thinks this is a base. If you understand it, even for a doctor, if you diagnose it properly, then giving medicines is easy. Diagnosis part is the hardest part. So we were able to understand what was the need of the government. Since I was inside the government, I clearly understood there are a lot of areas where government find it hard to cater to developing a tool or technologies or understanding a process. It's highly hard because in a developing nation, we are limited by resources. We don't have endless resources where we can put more resource. So it, obviously we need help of other people, to fill in the gaps. It could be universities or incubation hubs or private incubators or startups or private companies or CSR, NGOs, civil society. List is endless, but everyone has something to offer, and they are offering that for free sometimes, for monetized in a way sometimes. So we thought we can, if someone is offering, why to waste that thing, we should use it. When COVID came, we developed a tool called GCC Corona Monitoring, which was the first tool. Chennai City was the first city to launch an application and digital tool, even before Arogya Setu. This was the first project I was working on. So when we were pitching this idea, system was not ready because they find that they don't know whether it will be a successful tool or not, and they are worried that why we have to fund so much amount in developing these things because we don't know whether it will be successful. So we bring in volunteers, startups, and we got their ideas. We got their what inputs and also their efforts to develop this tool. Government didn't pay anything, not anything in the sense it's more of a people's effort. Government were giving support rather than monetary support. Other support government was giving, corporation was giving. So we developed and showed the potential was so high. More than 1.5 lakh people downloaded this in Play Store, and we were able to track the spread of the disease. It was a successful tool. And then we developed another tool for tracking positive patients in home. That too we developed in the same mechanism. So we saw they have seen two products which came from the society, and through it was developed in a collaborative mechanism where government don't have to spend much, but they were able to reap the benefit. It's helping corporation as well as government, as well as society, and a good name is also being corporation is getting good name as well. So the initial confidence level was built. And then what we do is we cannot continue doing this. There has to be some incentive mechanism for people participating as well. So because philanthropy or anything will not work for a long time, there has to be some incentives. So next thing what we did is, once we get a problem statement from the corporation or for the society, what we did is we invited startups and we told them that we'll give you problem statement, you give a solution, and we will what we will do is will give you space to pilot it in our Chennai corporation. You can pilot that thing, and if you like the tool and if it is successful, we will get it from you. We'll procure it from you. We will pay it for you as well. But if we don't like it, we are not going to pay it. But what we'll do is we'll give you authentication or certifications and everything that your tool is being used in Chennai corporation. You can take that as a leverage and you can sell it to other cities or other organizations. Because if you once you go to not any city or not just in city in India and across third world nations or Southeast Asia or Latin countries and tell that this tool is being used in Chennai corporation, the way they receive will be you will get more authentication because they know that it is being used there. So there is some potential for the tool, so you will get more opportunity that tool will get sold. So this is something which we offer to the people who are coming and doing it. And this is mutually useful because recently we developed some online portal for COVID vaccination that was done by one of the startups. There's much needed tool that is the official tool of Chennai Corporation now. And within 2 months, other cities showed interest. They also wanted the tool. So we connected the startups directly. But when they do it initially for Chennai Corporation, it was a pilot. There was no payment mechanism involved, but now they are able to make money out of it. So we are leveraging these kind of mechanisms and created this innovation space.
That's fantastic. Maybe you can share links for your tools that you're mentioning. So when we post this video, we will share with our viewers as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. In terms of the next question, maybe it's a two-part question. One is something along the lines where you was talking about. Oftentimes, technology is pushed as a silver bullet rather than a problem-solving issue. And then, but you mentioned that because you presented the problem and then asked people to build a solution around it, rather than here I have this fantastic silver bullet technology, everybody should adapt it, but rather you are trying to solve a problem. And in my experience, at least, we have seen
Yeah,
that's
that
how.
is,
Mhm.
yeah, that's a problem. I have also seen that people will come, a lot of people, youngsters and even startups come there. What they will, the way they pitch will be, they said they will be using blockchain, they are using AI, they are using recent technologies, and they'll be focusing more on the product or technology they're using rather than the problem. Though that problem will need a simple digital solution. It will not need, not every problem needs AI or blockchain or anything like that, or VR, AR. It's a small process level innovation might change, but that is that I have seen many of the companies and startups are focusing more on or on what kind of technology they're using rather than what is the root cause of the problem. So that is existing, but whenever people come and try to explain that way, I used to tell them that focus more on problem, understand the problem first. It's not about what technology is. We need that problem to be solved.
Yeah. So how do you define innovation at the hub? I mean, what is it? Is it technology or is it process? Or is it everything? How
Both,
how how does
both.
you? Yeah.
See, anything is, see, I will give you a real time example that last year when after COVID first wave, the tax collection by the Chennai Corporation was the amount collected was less because all our resources were being used, manpower was used to contain COVID, because that was the primary thing. So the tax collection was less, though obviously our coffin, the value, the money reserve we had was less. After first wave, we find that we are financially weak, so we have to gain it. We have to collect all the taxes. We have to get our own fund in space so that the engine will be running. Else, that will create a lot of financial issues. We won't be able to pay salaries properly. All those things might come. It happened before 1.5 years. So that is after, exactly after first wave. At that time, we instead, what can be done, the normal way is to say carrot and stick. We will ask people to work a lot, work more, and collect all the taxes, professional tax, property tax, trade license, all those things. This is the traditional approach, but what we suggested is it was part of that thing. I was actually pitching this idea to them that rather than using this thing, we will involve game theory. We'll gamify the process, so that we will divide the revenue department into different teams. We will give points to them for every tax they are collecting. It will be like proper IPL match where we will be giving man of the match, man of the series, quarterly, sorry, this quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals, like that. We'll take it. And the leadership accepted it. The leadership was having huge confidence because of the success they have seen in the innovation part. So they also accepted it because just a process change. We're not changing anything else. We are just giving this naming conventions, and we'll be having some leadership boards, and we'll be giving some rotating trophies and all. So this we gamified, and Metro City like Chennai Corporation, we gamified the entire revenue department for that process. And that month, that is September 2020, that was the month we are launching this game. And what happened was, after a month, people were working like anything. People, they extended their hours rather than telling officers telling them you should work for a long time. They themselves were extending hours. They were doing work. They are coming on time. And and at the end of the month, we found that the tax collected in that month was the highest in the history of Chennai Corporation, the history of 70 years. A small innovation, small tweak in the process has helped us generate this revenue. This is process wise. I'm talking about. It did not involve any technology or tool or anything. We just tweaked the process. We triggered the competitive spirit among the people, and we reaped a lot of benefits. So, in the same way, there are tools also we are working. We are now currently developing tools for agriculture, farmers, and we are working on tools for public engagement. We are working on tools related to malarial control, digital tools, and also that is also going on parallelly. But thing is, nowadays, most of the technologies become backbone of every process. So sometimes you can bring a change in process only by introducing technology rather than because technologies in technological tools will put a lot of conditions so that it will say if you are registering for COVID second vaccine. So we technology tool will not allow if you haven't crossed the specific number of I think 48 days or something if you not cover. Rather than telling people to follow this, technology itself will curtail. So this in this way, technology will be so helpful to enforcing certain things. So if we design the technological backbone, which is behind the process in a right way, that will optimize the process. So innovation nowadays is more technological and the process is also there, but the importance for technological tools has improved. So many of them tools that we develop are which is involving a lot of technology.
So let's talk a little bit about the hub itself. So where does it sit? Is it part of the Tamil Nadu government information technology department, or does it have links to the national system, or is it unique to only Chennai Corporation?
It is part of Chennai. It is part of Chennai Smart Cities.
Oh, see.
We have developed Chennai Smart City is part of Chennai Greater Chennai Corporation. So it is limited to Chennai Corporation. But thing is, other districts will also have place request in the hub because the whoever knows about this hub, the district electors who knows about the hub, they will give request and we'll be developing tools for them as well.
So mayor, it sits with the mayor's office.
Not mayors, not mayor's
Chennai Corporation. Office. Who is the head of Chennai Corporation?
It's commissioner.
The commissioner. Okay.
Yeah, mayor. So mayor that is political structure. This is bureaucratic structure.
Okay, administrative service.
Commissioners, IAS officers.
I see. Okay, so the funding comes primarily from the Chennai.
From the Chennai Smart Cities.
Chennai Smart Cities program.
Yes.
Okay, that's nice. So we were talking about innovation and we were talking about technology to solve problems. So what is next for the hub? Like right now, you are in the midst of a problem solving, so it's quite active. But if you talk about sustainability, what's next for the hub?
See, this is a very new concept. It's just 5-6 months old. So what we are focusing is we are trying to establish process, right? Because for many of the verticals, the process is not yet established. We are formalizing the process. We want to strengthen the hub first. That is our goal. In next 1 year or 2 year, we want to make sure that every department in corporation knows about this hub at least. So that is our goal. And we want to help all the departments as well as societies and colleges, universities, incubators, everyone to know about the hub so that everyone can come here and work together to solve social issues. This is our target as of now. We are not thinking beyond that because we want to make sure that hub functions properly in Chennai level at least. This is our primary goal. And personally, what I feel is what I have an idea of hub is I want this kind of hub to be established in every district so that every district will get benefit out of the local talents. See, local problems can be solved by local people or it has to be solved in a local way rather than solutions coming from some other countries or some other part, because the people localites know better what is the existing condition. So if there is a problem in Chennai or Chennai Corporation or societies in Chennai, the people in Chennai know much better to solve it. So we should give them an opportunity to solve that issue. So this hub will provide that. So I want this to be established with every corporation in Tamil Nadu as the next thing, so that everyone will benefit out of this.
That's great. We work closely with, for instance, Jakarta Smart City and also Malaysian Smart City and Singapore. And they have these, what they call pillars, like people, technologies, process, and it kind of uses a behavior change approach. I mean, sure, COVID is a current problem, but even before they were working on improving traffic management, reducing crime within the city. Also, in Jakarta, for instance, there is a group of, I don't know how to use the term, like informal traffic people. Like every street in Jakarta, there'll be some old man or a person who will direct the traffic and you pay him something to make sure, because the congested streets, there is no policeman there. So they were even trying to use them as a crowdsource information to talk about whether there is flooding in the street or lights are working and things like that. So do you have some plans like that, or have you interacted with other smart cities around the world?
We are interacting with other smart cities, but those are for projects which are not our priority. See, when there is a resource crunch, when we were not able to monitor, we can put some people like that. But I don't think we haven't reached that stage. We have enough capacity to do see, public participation is always good in governance, but that is limited to certain areas, because this regulation kind of activities an authority has to do, so that people will even respect. If not, if you put someone like this, I'm just telling the case, if you take and put it in a place in Chennai, people will not respect him. People is not, until unless he's backed by state government. The process, I highly doubt that how the process will go. But if that city is used to that culture, that is different. But we are going to introduce such thing as a new purpose, because I have seen a lot of private securities and all who will try to do these things for their private spaces. Let's say in the entrance of a private company, there will be security will come to the main road and he will be blocking traffic for some time, so that the cars inside that office will come out. Even at that time, people will not give much respect, because he's not backed by, say, state government. These things are not considered to be private things. So we are not considering to that level, but we definitely want people participation, but we want that in a different way, not in this kind of way. We want to use, if they want to definitely use their talent, they can come to the hub, and they can, if they have a solution that can be tested, if they want to pilot it, we will definitely, if the idea is good, we will help them to we will give them a space where they can pilot. All the projects that we are doing are with the help of citizens, or startups, or volunteers, or civil society organizations. So we will definitely encourage them in participation in a better way, in policy making, policy drafting, or else giving life to their idea. So in that way, we are thinking.
That's great. So you talked about partnerships with civil society and students and volunteers and startups. So I'm curious to know, how can someone like partner with you? I mean, I'm sure you are advertising this and putting in social media and people write to you, but traditionally, like, we work with a lot of young students, young professionals who want to do internships, for instance, or we have software people who want to contribute to public sector. How can we partner with you? Is there a formal structure, or how
Yeah,
do we?
every detail we have given that in our website clearly.
Mhm.
What are the procedures to connect with Innovation Hub? They
Okay.
can walk into the hub anytime. We have even put that, and we have given a clear detail on how they can draft, send a mail, what is the process. If they have an idea, or they want internship, if they want to pilot, or if they want to study along with us, we have clearly mentioned. Or else
Mhm.
they can directly walk. They just have to present their idea. They just have to present as a concept note. And if we feel that it is going to be mutually beneficial, then we will definitely put them, we'll connect them with the respective departments, so that he or she can work along with the department.
Yeah. One more thing, like getting back to you and your background as an innovation, I mean, tech person in public policy. Quite often, when I used to live in India, if you are in this job, if you study for this job, it's generally accepted that you can only do that. And we are not often encouraged to think outside the box, or we're not encouraged to, or the best two jobs are either doctor and engineer, and if not, you're a failure in life. These kind of attitudes exist. Like globally, if you say the US or Europe, somewhere else, nobody would really mind what work you do as long as it's an honest day's labor. Like, you can be selling pizzas today, and tomorrow you can be driving a rocket for NASA, and people can switch careers easily compared to in India. Can you walk us through the process that you went through? For instance, you mentioned a little bit, and how easy or difficult it is to walk these both the fields in public policy and governance, as well as in IT.
See, my personal view is, see, what you said before, that in developed countries it is much easier to switch jobs. Even here it is easier to switch jobs, but thing is, we have a difference in pay. There are only few jobs, the pay that you get are higher, and there are in other jobs the pay is very less, because we don't have basic minimum pay concept, or what to get, or higher pay in menial jobs. But it is completely different in a developed nation. There won't be an IT professional or a history professor will be having a same salary there. But if you take the same case in our country, there will be extreme gap. So it's not that you cannot jump from these two. If you jump, then you will be at as a disadvantaged position. So that is there, because that's not just only that applicable only to India. All the developing countries or third world countries face this issue, uh, because we most of the job which we do are service oriented industries, or in service industries. We are not in product based industries. We are servicing literally the developed countries projects. Many of the projects are, so that is, so I feel that that is the reason why we have difference in this pay. And coming back to me, and I did my masters. I also finished my masters after coming out of IT industry. I did a masters in international relations, and that also gave me a lot of idea, because international relations along with the political science. So I was able to grasp a lot of ideas in how this public administration works or international policy works. All those things I was able to get some knowledge. And the switching of the field is basically this research fellow is I when I entered that field, it was most of I did a risk, because I was not aware how it is going to be. But I know that I will be given opportunity to do some projects on ground. But I didn't expect that I will be learning on policy making and how to implement a policy, all those things. Only after getting into that I learned. And on a personal note, see, if you want to learn swimming, you have to jump into water. No matter amount of reading books is going to teach us how we are going to swim. So when it comes to switching careers also, sometimes you have to take risk. There is always element of risk, but only if you take the risk, we'll understand how we will be successful, or else we will learn. With that experience, we can go into some other thing. That experience will be helpful in our next activity. That's how I see this.
I think that's a fantastic way to end this short dialogue, Mr. Aragu. We really appreciate your time in giving us and telling us about the Chennai Innovation Hub, about your own career, as well as how we can partner with you. So we're very grateful. And to our viewers watching around the world, we very much appreciate you joining us, and we look forward bringing another interesting dialogue series soon. Thank you so much, Mr. Aragu. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.